Go. Good evening. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. We say night, but doesn't it's not really like night, eh, Carol?
It's gonna be night in a few minutes. You see that my window's gonna get darker and darker. I already have the inside lights on, just waiting. But yeah, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everybody at home. Or good morning, good afternoon if you're watching somewhere else, or if you're watching this later.
That's right. So we are in daylight savings and it's almost summer. Yeah, officially it's not summer yet, but we're getting to summer.
Another month.
Yeah, very, very soon. So it's still daylight, even though it's 7 p.m. in Auckland, New Zealand. And here we are for another public meeting, Allan Kardec Spirits Group of New Zealand. And as usual, let's study Gospel according to Spiritism, Spirit's book, and try to learn a little bit more about this amazing doctrine. And so to start with, we give our yeah, maybe I put this one. So in terms of news is what we usually do in the beginning of our meetings. We have events to advertise. So not sure if you guys can read, but basically it's an event with the participation of 40 different countries. So it's really cool of Brazilians that live overseas and talk about spiritism and will be really cool. So our group participates as well and is going to go live on Sunday in Brazil, November the 7th from 4 to 8 p.m. But in New Zealand, it's going to be Monday, 8th of November from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. So all the information is here and all the information is on our Facebook page as well. And I believe in Instagram. If it's not there yet, should be there soon. So you just need to go to YouTube, to that TV Mundo Maior, which has lots of cool information as well. So, and we are there. We representing New Zealand in there. So if you guys have a chance, would be a cool opportunity to learn more about spiritism outside Brazil, because we know in Brazil we have lots of spiritist centers everywhere, right? But overseas, not so much. Some places more, some places less. But it's good to know that pretty much everywhere there is some spiritist center and people are studying spiritism. So, oh, we have a message from Mani already participating. Good evening. Is all work well in here? No need to show this. Oh, sorry, guys. My bad, my bad. Okay, now I gotta explain. Mani is the one
So,
that understands more the StreamYard,
oh,
so I didn't read everything. But that's all right. People can know that we are learning, eh, Carol?
yeah, we're just doing some tests. So he's commenting there here in the corner. Mani is our technique is in the behind doing in the background.
Yeah, he's definitely our IT expert, and we're just learning. So let's then start with our reading, our inspirational reading for tonight. And I'll see if I can put a little bit bigger. Okay. So tonight, as usual, we're reading from Christian Agenda, and is the topic is the name of the lesson, I should say, is defend yourself. Do not turn your ears into a storehouse of rumors. Intrigue is a viper that will lodge in your soul. Do not transform your eyes into lenses of vivification. The images that you corrupt will remain corrupt on the screen of your mind. Do not turn your hands into spears in order to fight without profit. Use them in the field of goodness. Do not underrate your creative faculties by focusing them on easy pleasures. You will answer for what you did with them. Do not condemn your imagination to permanent excitation. Your inferior creations will torment your inner world. Do not lead your feelings towards a lust for suffering. Teach them to delight in the enjoyment of service. Do not search, sorry, do not search for the pathway to paradise while directing others towards the road to hell. The way to heaven will be built inside yourself. Cool. So, very beautiful reading. Really good to help us to live outside our worries, our preoccupations, our busy daily lives, and be present here in this meeting. So now, just gonna find the, sorry. So now, after that, we are going to do our initial prayer, and we can all get in the same vibe, in the same energy for tonight. And Carol will do this for us. Thank you, Carol.
All right. So now together we close our eyes. And like we read in the page, like Alcione said, we try our best to be present in this moment, to leave outside of our minds the worries of this day, of this week. We try our best to open our minds and open our hearts to the teachings that we will learn tonight. We thank you, God, for the opportunity of being here. We're always so thankful for having each other, having Spiritism, and having the opportunity of keeping up with our studies online now when we cannot meet in presence. We ask that you bless all of those that couldn't be here tonight, incarnated or disincarnated, that they may receive the good vibrations from this study, from us here studying together. We ask that you magnetize the water, you spirit, you God and spirits, friendly spirits, not only here doing the study with us, but in everyone's houses that are accompanying the study with us. We ask that you magnetize the water that some of us might have on our tables or by our sides, so we can drink from this water, and that may help us, remembering that the water will only do its job if we are all vibrating in the same pattern. So we ask for your blessing to start the study of tonight. We ask for your blessing for this healthy discussion and for this next hour, that we may be open to your intuition and to your participation on the studies also. Thank you, and so be it.
Thank you, Carol. That was really nice. And now we all in the same vibration and the same cool. So now we're gonna share. Start with the gospel according to Spiritism. So last week we finished a chapter. The chapter was you cannot serve both God and Mammon, and now we're starting a new chapter. So it's good to start fresh, a new reading and a new understanding as well. And can you see well, Carol?
Yeah.
Is that okay? Right, cool. So the chapter is Be Perfect, and we're gonna go pretty much straight into it. Okay, so I'll do it bigger. Could you please read for us? Ah, sorry. Yeah, I apologize. It's sometimes a little bit tricky to find the perfect balance between the size of the letter and to also fit here, but we can do it. Cool. Thank you. Can you please start, Carol?
Now is a little small, so
Is
when
it
you put it
small?
before, like the laying down, can you do that again or not really?
I'll try. Like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, maybe we have to do the one like that because it was quite tiny. The next
Okay.
one's gonna be big, so it should be all right.
All
All
right.
right. The characteristics of perfection. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you and pray for those who persecute and slander you. For if you love only those who love you, what reward will you have? Do not do not the publicans do the same? If you greet only your brothers, what are you doing that is more than what others do? Do not the pagans also do the same? Therefore, be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Matthew 5:44, 46 to 48. Since God possesses infinite perfection in all things, the maxim, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect, if taken literally, would presuppose the possibility of attaining absolute perfection. If it were given to the creature to be as perfect as the Creator, the former would become equal to the latter, which is inadmissible. However, the people to whom Jesus spoke would not have understood this nuance. He limited himself to presenting them with a model and told them to put forth the effort to emulate it. One must therefore understand these words to mean a relative perfection, which humanity is able to achieve and which brings it closest to divinity. What does such perfection consist of? Jesus said, to love our enemies, to do good to those who hate us, and to pray for those who persecute us. In this way, he shows that the essence of perfection is charity and it's broad in its broadest definition, because it entails the practice of all other virtues. In fact, by observing the results of all vices, and even the simplest defects, one will realize that there is not one of them that does not alter the sentiment of charity to some degree, because they all have in their origin in selfishness and pride, which are the opposites of charity. This is because everything that overexcites the sentiment of personality destroys or at least weakens the elements of true charity, benevolence, indulgence, self-denial, and devotion. Taken so far as to loving one's enemies, love for one's neighbor cannot ally itself with any defect contrary to charity, and therefore is always an indication of a greater or lesser moral ascendancy. Hence, it follows that the degree of perfection is in direct proportion of the range of such love. This is why Jesus, after having given his disciples the guidelines of the most sublime charity, said to them, therefore, be perfect, as your heavenly Father is perfect.
Oh, cool. Thank you, Carol. Mhm. Would you like to start with some comments or would you like me to go first?
Oh, no, I can talk. So we, like Alcione said, we changed the chapter. We have been talking for a while about richness and poorness and comparing lifestyles and why people, what people have to deal with. And now we're talking about perfection. So it's a really good start talking about, obviously, we all know that God is perfect. And it's a nice explanation saying that even though Jesus said, try and be perfect like God, he was just using, again, like he uses a lot, trying to make the explanation simpler for the people that were listening at the time. it was easier this way to tell them to try and be perfect using an example of perfection. But we know that God is the only one that can be can actually be perfect, to actually have the 100% pureness and perfection, because God was always perfect. So when we say God is eternal and we are infinite, isn't it? God always existed, God will always exist. And we were created by Him, and we say Him in English, so it's created
Yeah.
by it, or um, and so at some point we have the beginning, so that's why we say we are infinite. So we had a beginning, but the spirit will live forever, so there is no end. And I think that's a good comparison with this type of perfection also. So we might reach levels, really really high levels um, of involvement, but we're never going to be perfect like God. And I think this is also an example of the spirits say that a lot on the spiritist book, how our vocabulary is limited. So we keep using the word perfection for everything. Perfect spirits, God is perfect. But I think, and when it says here fully perfect or different types of perfection, I think that's what it means. We call everything perfection, but the perfection of a spirit that was created, a perfect spirit that was at some point created by God, is obviously different from the perfection that God has. It's not something that can be obtained. It's something that He always was and will always be. So I think that simplifies a bit the way of thinking, the comparison, maybe.
Cool. Thank you, Carol. Really good comments. What got my attention as well is when it says that we can achieve the relative perfection. So, because as Carol already said, the total perfection is only God's. We can't be perfect like God because there is only one God. There aren't many. But by relative perfection, it means that we can be perfect to a point. We can be get some perfection, but not the total one. And the other part that was interesting as well, that the essence of this relative perfection is charity. So this is the essence of it, the essence of what Jesus told us to be perfect in that sense is for us to again practice charity, which we see all over the gospel. According to Spiritism, pretty much every chapter will tell us about charity. And be careful with our vices, because our vices are usually the opposite of charity. So the selfishness, the pride. We saw lots of talk about selfishness and pride in the previous chapter when we studied about the wealth, the attachment to the wealth, and how we use it, and how this can maximize or make bigger our pride and selfishness as well. So all the vices will be the opposite of charity, and all the virtues will be helping us to get to charity. So yeah, just to keep in mind that this perfection is relative. It's to a point, is whatever is possible for us as spirits, because we're not going to be perfect as God. And the best example of trying to be perfect, try to achieve this relative perfection, is Jesus Christ. He was the one that brought us all the examples for it. Yeah, I think it's a very clear passage. Hey, do you have anything else, Carol, or we can keep reading?
No, I think we can keep reading.
Cool, awesome. And I'll just get to the page. I believe it's that one. Cool. And so I'll put it bigger. So I think is it big now?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Can you keep reading, please, Carol?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Moral persons. Truly moral persons are those who practice the law of justice, love, and charity in its greatest purity. If they question their conscience about their actions, they ask themselves if they have violated this law, if they have done any evil, if they have done all the good they could, if they have willingly,
Oh, sorry. I was, yep.
like,
Thank you.
willingly disregarded any opportunity to be useful. if anyone might have a complaint about them, and finally, if they have done unto others everything they would like to have done unto themselves. They have faith in God and in God's goodness, justice, and wisdom. They know that nothing happens without God's permission, so they submit to the divine will in everything. They have faith in the future. Thus, they place spiritual possessions over temporal ones. They know that all the vicissitudes of life, all its sorrows, and all disappointments are trials or expiations, and they accept them without complaining. Persons imbued with the sentiment of charity and love for their neighbor do the good for its own sake without expecting anything in return, and they repair evil with good, defend the weak against the strong, and always sacrifice their own interests to the interests of justice. They find their satisfaction in the benefits they spread around, the service they render, the happiness they promote, the tears they dry, and the consolation they provide to the afflicted. Their first impulses is to think of others before thinking of themselves, and to attend to the interests of others before their own. The selfish, on the other hand, calculate the profits and losses entailed in every generous act. Moral persons are kind, humane, and benevolent towards all, regardless of race or creed, because they regard all people as their brothers and sisters. They respect all sincere convictions that others might hold to, and they do not anatomize those who do not think do not think like they do. In all circumstances, charity is their guide. They tell themselves that those who harm others with malevolent words, who hurt others' feelings with their pride and disdain, who do not recoil from the idea of causing suffering or difficulty, however slight, when it could be avoided, fail in their duty of love for their neighbor and do not deserve the Lord's clemency. They hold no hate. They hold no hatred or rancor or desire for vengeance. Following Jesus' example, they forgive and forget offenses and remember only good deeds because they know that they will be forgiven according to how they themselves have forgiven. They are indulgent towards others' weaknesses, for they know that they themselves need indulgence, and they recall these words from Christ: let him who is without sin cast the first stone. They never take pleasure in searching for defects in others or in calling attention to them. If necessity forces them to do so, they always look for the good that might mitigate the evil. They study their own imperfections and strive incessantly to combat them. All their efforts are focused on being able to say to themselves tomorrow that they are better than they were yesterday. They do not seek to exalt their spirit or talents at the expenses of others. Instead, they seize every opportunity to point out what is praiseworthy in other people. They do not gloat over their wealth or their personal advantages, for they know that everything that has been given to them can be taken away. They use but do not abuse the possessions that have been accorded to them, for they know that they are a trust for which they will have to render an accounting, and that worse use of them in regard to themselves would be to use them to satisfy their passions. If the social order has placed others under their tutelage, they treat them with kindness and benevolence, because they are their equals before God. They use their authority to lift their morale and not to squash them with their pride. They avoid anything that could render their subordinates' position more painful. Those who are subordinate, on the other hand, understand the duties of their position and are scrupulous in consciously fulfilling them. See chapter 17, so that's just a little note. Finally, moral persons respecting their fellow beings, all the rights arising from the laws of nature, in the same way they wish their own to be respected. This is not a list of all the qualities that define moral persons, but whoever makes an effort to possess them is on the road that leads all the others to all the others.
What a list, eh?
Easy, very easy.
If we
You
just could
just have
do
to do all of
everything in
that.
here, that's it, right, Carol?
Easy. Already doing all that, ticking all the items on the list. Oh no, jokes aside, it's obviously really hard. And the list. Sorry. Oh, actually, also, I'm sorry, but I realized in the middle of it that I could have changed the slide myself, couldn't I?
I don't
I don't know
know.
if I could.
Can you
I don't
try?
think I can actually. No, I'm trying, but I can't. I was gonna say, could you go back to the beginning, just the
Yes,
first
of
one,
course.
please?
First one
Yeah,
here.
there you go. Moral. Yeah, wanted to remember the title if I was saying right. So yeah, moral person. So obviously being a moral, what they call a moral person, which is basically a good person, a person with morals, who has morals and actually follows them, live according to them.
Mhm.
It's clearly really hard. It's a long list, and I think just obviously is in the same chapter, so it's going to be related. But the previous passage gave a sum up of everything that was going to be disclosed on this passage now, which is really long and has the long list of examples. But he said on the first part that we read that the basic, that the base for all of that is charity. So all the problems we have, all the parts of us that are not so good, are based in two things. So all the evils in the world are based in two things, which is pride and selfishness. So if and the opposite of that is charity. So if we are and all the list that he said that he says here that he says on the on what we read now is based on, so an example, it says that if you, sorry, can I see the slide again?
Yeah, of course. Sorry.
I can use any of them, can be maybe the second or third one.
Okay, sorry, Carol.
It's all right.
What did I do?
It's because it's Zoom then. So guys, apologies for our trials and mistakes here.
Can you read or something?
Maybe one more, sorry.
That's okay. No problem.
Anyways, I remember one. I don't think I'd even have to find. So it talks about when you have subordinates, if you are a moral person, you treat them with respect and you give them what they need to be a person, to be a respected person, member of society, right? So this is what a moral person would do. So to do that, you need to be charitable enough to not just share, so we all had a boss like this or know someone that manages like that doesn't like to share credit or doesn't want to give the person a recognition because he thinks it takes it out of their work. So if you are a mark of a good leader is also to do with a person that is not so selfish, right? That shares their ideas, shares their time, and it makes the workplace a better place for everybody to work. And if you are a subordinate, that you always also doing that for your colleagues and doing that for the person, understand what is your role on that organization. If we're talking about nowadays, understand what is your role on the organization, and also treat people above you and around you with respect and give them the time and what they want to be, to feel important and to feel part of their team. So without, and this is charity. So you are a charitable person if you would dedicate time to other people, if you put yourself on other people's places, and you can't do that if you're selfish. And if you are a very proud person, you're gonna fight for credit. You're going to be always afraid of other people shining through with their skills because you think it takes out of you. So we can take any example of this long list and put it in this and analyze it, and we'll be able to see that, oh, this is based on pride, this is based on selfishness, and the response to this would be being charitable in some way. So being charitable in forgiving people, being charitable in understanding people, being charitable in being patient towards people. So anything is going to be based on this opposite in this triad. So if you are if you're doing your best to be charitable, doesn't mean you're never going to be proud or selfish. We're all learning. We're
Mm.
really in the beginning of this long path towards perfection. So we will make mistakes. The important part is that we're trying. So if you're trying to be this moral person, we definitely are not there yet, because we can't behave like this all the time. But as long as, and in the beginning of the text talks something really interesting, that is, a moral person also analyzes their actions, and analyzes their thoughts, and is always paying attention to what you have done on the course of the day. And I'm sure Alcione is going to bring it up, because I always remember of you when we talked about this, about Saint Augustine and analyzing in the end of the day what you did, you know. So a good person analyzes their actions and their words towards other people. And I think interpreting from the text, a good person, a moral person, will also take feedback, right? Will listen to other people when they talk to you, especially when it comes from a place of love. You are kind and understanding, to and humble to listen to people that have your best interest in their heart when they tell you that you're wrong or that you need to change in something. So it's a short list of things to keep doing.
It is, right? It is. So I'll just highlight, yeah, I totally agree with Carol of the importance of this list, and just a few parts that got my attention when it talks that the moral person will always pay attention in the law of justice, love, and charity. So again, we know about charity, but that justice is important as well, right? Because sometimes we may be injustice when we judge other people, when we're too hard on them, or just don't let them explain what's going on and just make our decision. So that's about justice as well. The other part when say the moral person forgive and forgets, so it's something that we're still learning. Sometimes we are able to forgive easily, but if it's people that we don't get along, have some difficulties of communication or relationship, it's so hard to forgive sometimes, right? Something for us to pay attention. And when a moral person will think of others before themselves. So that's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because our tendency, and of course we learned that from a long time, and that is what we are used to do, but sometimes we manage to do, not all the time. And as Carol said, we're going to make mistakes, we're going to get it right, but we need to keep at the back of our minds the importance of it, think of others before ourselves. And the other bit was the faith in the future, which is very important as well, because if we don't, what is the point? If we only believe in this life, if we don't have this faith in the future, it's much easier to just get put our attention in our material things, in the wealth, as we saw in the previous chapter, and do right now. So it's important to be in the present moment, but sometimes we're just in the present moment in the material things and not really in our spiritual life and the eternity. So yeah, many things. I think that chapter is the one that we need to read, reflect, go back, read again many times, because it's lots of information. They all go to the same place, which is charity, and look after. And the other very important point that Carol Red said about analyzing ourselves, check what we have done well and not well during the day and make a plan for next day. So it's the wise advice from Saint Augustine. Yeah, but it's very easy to understand, right? The text is very easy to follow. It's no like difficult words or anything like that. So maybe that's why it has been kind of easy to read and make some comments.
Yeah,
Um,
easy to understand, not so easy
yeah,
to act on, just to leave it.
exactly. Exactly, to understand what it is, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
what time is it? 7. Oh, yeah, we still have time to read a bit more. Sorry, Carol, I'm a bit slow with
Alright.
that.
Are you doing good?
So we finished the moral persons, right?
Yeah, it was the end of it.
Was the end of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now the next one will be good spiritists. So let's see then what does it mean to be good spiritists? And I'll put it's okay for you to keep reading, Carol, but if it's too much, you can pass it on to me.
No, I can read it. I don't mind.
Oh, thank you.
Those who are subordinate. Oh no, sorry. Good
Oh,
spiritists.
that's all right.
Spiritism, when well understood, but especially when well felt, inevitably leads to the results listed above, which characterize the true Spiritist as well as the true Christian, for they are one and the same. Spiritism does not create a new morality, it only makes it easier for people sorry,
Understand?
to understand and practice the morality of Christ by providing an unshakable and an enlightening faith to those who doubt or waver. Nonetheless, many of those who believe in spirit manifestations understand neither their consequences nor their moral implications, or if they do understand them, they do not apply them to themselves. To what may this be attributed? To a lack of precision in the doctrine? No, because the doctrine contains no allegories or symbols that could give way to erroneous interpretations. Clarity is its essence, and clarity is its essence, and that is what makes it powerful, for it goes directly to one's intelligence. It contains nothing mysterious, and its adherents do not possess any secret that is hidden from ordinary people. Thus, is an exceptional intelligence needed to understand it? No, since one sees individuals with notable capacities who do not comprehend it, while average minds, even young people who have barely left adolescence, understand it in its most delicate nuances with admirable precision. This derives from the fact that somewhat material aspects of the spiritist science requires only eyes that can observe, whereas the essential aspect requires a certain degree of sensibility, which one might call maturity of the moral sense, regardless of age and level of education, because it is particularly inherent to the development of the incarnate spirit. In sum, the material ties are still too tenacious to allow the spirit to detach itself from the things of the world, because the fog that envelops them obscures their vision of the infinite. Consequently, they do not easily break with their tastes or their habits, as they do not understand anything better than what they have. The belief in the spirits is for them a simple fact, but it does nothing or very little to change their instinctive tendencies. In other words, they see only a ray of light, insufficient to guide them and endow them with a powerful aspiration capable of overcoming their inclinations. These persons, are much more interested in the phenomena than the morality, which seems banal and monotonous. They incessantly demand that spirits introduce them to new mysteries without asking if they are worthy of grasping the secrets of the Creator. These individuals are imperfect spirits. Some remain stationary or distancing themselves from their brothers and sisters in the faith, recoiling and at the obligation of reforming themselves, or otherwise reserving their sympathies for those who share their weaknesses or prejudices. Nevertheless, acceptance of the principles of the doctrine is a first step that will make the second easier in a future existence. Do you want to stop for commenting a little bit, Alcione, or is it really long?
I just want to check. That's kind
Oh,
of
there's
the last bit.
yeah,
Oh, sorry, I put in the wrong one.
it's okay.
Because yeah, just one more paragraph, and then will
Yeah.
be a next topic, right?
Those who may rightfully be regarded as true and sincere spirits are at a higher degree of moral advancement. Their spirit dominates matter more completely, thus giving them a clearer perception of the future. The principles of the doctrine make fibers vibrate within them that remain dormant in the former. In short, their heartstrings are touched. Therefore, their faith is unshakable. Some are like the musician who is moved by certain chords, when others hear only the sounds. True spirits are recognized by their moral transformation and the efforts they make to overcome their evil inclinations, while the former are content with their limited horizon. The latter understand that there is something better. They make the effort to free themselves, and they always reach their goal if they maintain a firm will. So that's a classic sentence, eh? The true spirits are recognized by their moral transformation and the efforts to
Efforts.
fight the evil on them. Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. And if you're spirits for, it doesn't have to be for a long time. You probably already heard that sentence many, many times. So just like the other part of the chapter we were reading, easier said than done. It's easier to understand than to do it.
Yeah.
But I like how this part it talks about the difference of saying you're a spiritist and actually being one. So a lot of us can say, a lot of us say we're spiritists. If someone asks if you have a religion or if you believe in something, you say you're a spiritist. But are we truly spiritists? Are we actually trying to fight the evil or inclinations, or are we just saying we are doing it? So it is obviously a very hard task and something you must do every day, all the time. You should be watching and, like we said before, watching, analyzing, watching your thoughts and actions, analyzing your thoughts and actions, and listening to other people, and etc. But interesting on this part that says that a lot of people are attracted to the spiritists because of the phenomena. So because of all wants to hear from the spirits or want to be on, oh, this person is doing a psychography of, is it psychography? Of
Yeah. Correct.
doing in English. I was like, was that the word?
Yeah.
Doing psychography of, I want a letter from my dad that passed away or my son that passed away, and I want to go and get a letter, and it just ignores everything that you've been studying your whole life, saying that communication with the spirits really has its importance in what we study and what we do, but it's not. We need to accept that the person is disincarnated and that we will meet at some point. And then when the person actually disincarnates, the person uh, falls in despair and just wants to hear a communication from them and keeps following those people that are doing psychography so they get a message. So that's the importance of actually being studying and improving ourselves, because in a moment of in a complicated moment in our lives, it will be much easier to go through and actually carry on your studying and improvement if you have a solid base, right? And obviously, again, much easier said than done.
Mhm.
When you lose a person or something really complicated goes in your life, a trial, an expiation, that's when you're being trialed. That's when it is supposed to be hard, right? To push us forward, to push us towards evolution. So it is supposed to be hard. It is supposed to be complicated. And the best we can do is prepare ourselves for those situations. And that's what the spiritism is trying to do. Give us knowledge, so we can deal with that ourselves, so we can actually evolve and for life to be less painful. So he says also in this bit of the chapter that if if we understand better, if we dedicate our lives to it, life will be easier. It will the
Mhm.
what we can't do anything about things that are going to happen around us. What we can do is change the way we react to them. So this is why it's so important to be a true spiritist, is that if we are doing our best to try and improve ourselves, to study as much as we can, um, it will make life easier. We will accept things better, and it won't hurt so much. It doesn't mean it won't hurt at all, but we'll just be hopefully a little easier to understand and a little easier to move on. Um, and also, the beginning of this, it's quite nice about. Oh, I forgot what I was going to say. I'll pass to you also.
That's
Maybe I'll
okay.
remember in a minute.
That's okay. If you remember, you can come back. Yeah, I when you were talking, remember when I was a kid, I could, I don't know, might be different in Brazil now, but some people would say adults. I don't want to say I'm a spiritist because if I say, then I have to do. If I say, some people didn't want to recognize that
Mm.
they were spiritists. No, I don't know yet, or in Brazil, some people use the term simpatizante. I don't know
Yeah.
in English how
To
that would be.
sympathize with it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of not wanting to take the responsibility because once you say I am and I know, it's our responsibility to do something about it. But of course, it's a step by step. We can't just overnight have that unshakable faith. Imagine having that. Might be super cool, right? But it's tough. It's hard to have always that faith, always that belief, and because we still have like our instinctive tendencies that came from such a long time, so many lives that we had in the past, and all these instincts and the tendencies, yeah, they are in us, they are still in us. So it's a fight. It's like we fight, we have to fight. It's an internal fight with ourselves. Is requires lots of courage to face our shadows meaning our vices that we all have, and it's a daily activity and exercise. But at the same time, it's a blessing to know that this life, it's temporary, it's just for us to learn and to progress and to acquire slowly that faith in future, which we saw in the other one. So it's all about that. So I think the more faith, and the faith is also built and can be stronger the more we learn, the more we understand, because it's kind of the blind faith. It's not so good, right? To believe in something just, oh, Carol said that, so yes, Carol is right. I'm gonna follow her. That's it, right? But the rational faith, which spirit is, we can find in all the spiritist doctrine, is the one that we think about, makes sense for us, and the more we can understand, that just makes our faith stronger because makes sense for us, so then we can go forward. So that's the importance of us to be always studying, always not only reading but studying, understanding, questioning as well, because at first some things are hard to understand, and myself, like many spiritist questions, I had to ask again and try to understand and review, and other people explain in a simpler way. So I can't say that I understand everything in spiritism. There are many things that I'm still learning, and that's the way to go, to try to learn every day and make our faith stronger, and don't give up. Like because the good that famous phrase, the good spirits is the one that make an effort to transform themselves to make a little bit different, and that is the way that we are going towards. Did you remember, Carol?
Yeah, I was gonna say that that I like in the beginning also the talks about. But if it is about studying and it is about why there are so many people that follow it, it's first of all because it touches people, right? So it's something that, like you just said, it's rationalized faith. So it's something that touches you on your rational side, and it makes sense. That's why you want to follow, you want to understand more, you want to keep studying, you believe it because it makes sense. But if it touches on intelligence, if it that's the what you need to be able to be rational, to be able to understand, you need to be intelligent. Um, how much intelligence do you need to be a spiritist? And that's what is also quite interesting on the text. It doesn't mean you need to be extremely intelligent, because anyone could understand the basics of it, because it's actually really simple. And that's why we started studying with the kids. Otherwise,
Yeah.
if you haven't been to, if you're watching this and you haven't been to a evangelization, to a child or youth study spiritism, spiritist study, if you haven't been, I'll tell you that is pretty much what we do here. It's just different words and different ways of explaining. But even because I love talking through a metaphor, lots of the stuff that I tell the kids, I also say when we do the studies. And I think lots of people appreciate that it's easier to understand when you put it that way. And Jesus would talk through metaphors all the time, right? Through parables and metaphors, so we would understand what he was talking about. So you just put it in a different way, something that is actually a very simple concept, and people can study into more depth if they want, if they understand more and they want to study and go into actual science and study molecules and to be able to prove all of this that we are reading and talking about is great. But you don't have to be a physicist, a scientist to be able to understand. We are quite far from that. We're
Oh
much
yeah.
more on
Not
the
my strong
human
suit.
side of the sciences, Nelson.
Yeah. We more
So
like human science, right, Carol?
yeah,
We like
exactly.
human
So,
science,
and we
behavior.
still, yeah, exactly. And we still understand basic concepts and talk about it, are able to discuss. And like Alcione said, obviously learning everything new every time we have to do to study to do the study here, or that we see it in a study with you guys and actually discuss what we are reading. There's always something new. There's always something to be taught, so or to be learned. So it's always enriching, but you don't have to be extremely smart to be part of it. You just want to understand it or to be part of it or to follow or to improve yourself. How many people actually never heard of Spiritism and have so many of the concepts really clear on their minds and their hearts, and actually are way more of Spiritists than a lot of people that we know, you know? So, yeah, it's just concepts there. So.
Cool. So it's almost eight. Shall we? So the parable of the sower is 3 pages. Do you think it's okay to read, Carol?
Yeah, let's maybe we read parts and talk a little bit and read again and talk, but I think it's fine. Still waiting. Yeah.
Cool. So, can you read, please?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Parable of the sower. On that same day, Jesus, having left the house, sat down close to the sea, and a large crowd of people gathered around him. Therefore, he climbed into a boat and sat down, while the people remained on the shore. He then told them many things in parables, speaking to them in this way. There's a parable again. A sower
Yeah.
went out to sow, And as he was sowing, some of the seed fell by the wayside, and the birds of the sky came and ate them. Other seed fell upon stony places where there was not much earth. They soon sprouted because the soil was not very deep. But when the sun came up, it scorched them, and since they had no roots, they withered. Still water seed fell among thorns, and when they began to grow, the thorns choked them. Finally, some seed fell on good ground and produced a crop, some rendering 100 to 1, others 60, and others 30. He who has ears, let him hear. Matthew. Hear therefore the parable of the sower. Whoever hears the word of the kingdom, but does not heed it, the evil spirit comes and takes away what had been sown in his heart. This is the one who received the seed by the wayside. He who received the seed among the stones is the one who hears the word and receives it joyously as soon as he hears it, but he has no roots in himself, and it lasts only for a while. And when he is overcome by obstacles and persecutions on account of the word, he soon regards it as an object of offense and ruin. He who receives the seed among the thorns is the one who hears the word, but then the cares of the times and the illusions of riches choke the word within him, rendering it unfruitful. But he who receives the seed on good soil is the one who hears the word, who heeds it, and who produces a crop, rendering 100 or 60 or 30 to 1. Matthew. The parable of the sower represents perfectly, so that we were reading before was the message from, obviously, came from Matthew, from the Bible, and now it's the commenting from the spirits.
Right.
Sorry, I'm sending
That's okay. That's okay.
The parable of the sower represents perfectly the nuances that exist in the ways one profits from the teachings of the gospel. How many people there are, in fact, for whom the gospel teachings are only a dead letter, which, like the seed that has fallen on the stony soil, produces no crop. These parable finds a no less correct application in the different categories of spiritists. Is it not a symbol of those who are interested only in the physical phenomena but derive nothing of consequence from them because they see them as nothing more than an object of curiosity? Of those who seek nothing but the wonder in spirit's communications, who are interested in them only to the extent that they satisfy their imagination, but who, after having received them, are as cold and indifferent as they were in the first place. Of those who find the counsels to be very good and admirable, yet apply them only by others and not themselves, and those who finally, for whom the teachings are like the seed that falls on the good soil and yields a crop.
Cool. All right. So let's number 7. Thank
Okay,
you.
so
Thank you for all the reading, Carol. Sorry, was lots of you
no
reading.
problem. No, it's fine. Um, so yeah, for in Portuguese, sower is semeador, right? So sower is the person that throws the seeds on the ground. There's planting the seeds on, not planting, throwing the seeds on the ground. Um,
So a
so
parábola do semeador. For
yeah, so this it's a very it's always interesting how it's always going to be up to date, doesn't matter how long ago this was written. And the comparison that the spirit, so like I said, the first part was the little piece from the Bible, so from the gospel, and in the bottom the commenting from the spirits, and the commenting um, does the comparison quite well of what each bit of the parable means. So obviously, if the soil is not fertile, it doesn't matter how many seeds you throw on it. it's never going to grow, it's never going to work. So it doesn't matter how much you study if you're not working on yourself, if you're not preparing the soil for the seed. So you can be part of as many study groups as you want. If you don't leave what you're studying, there's no point on studying. We can't live just of theory. So we need to study too, because that's the way we're going to learn. We're going to keep enhancing ourselves. But the only truly the only true way of keep evolving is actually applying on our lives what we're studying. So we can read about charity as much as we want. If you don't practice, charity without practice is dead, right? So there's no point of talking about it, of reading about it, if you're not practicing. So if we are doing all this studying, and it's not sprouting on us, means we are probably in the thorn situation. It's falling there, it's starting to sprout because you're talking about it, you're kind of making an effort, but it's being suffocated by life, right? So it's really easy to talk about charity here in a room where it's quite easy to deal with people, or it's just a talk, and then go to work on the next day, even through Zoom, and the person is talking and you're like, oh my God, is he ever going to shut up? So it's really hard. The trials come, and those are the thorns that keep growing around us and that suffocate the sprouting. So if we are not carefully chopping those thorns, making the light shine through them, we're never going to flourish. And in even worse cases are people that are not willing to study or to hear. They are the dry, rough soil that the seed doesn't even fall inside of it. And the rocky soil, people that are happy to listen to it, to hear it, but they are not listening. So talk about it, listen, but it doesn't really make a change. It doesn't really make a difference. So I do want to believe that we are mostly on the thorn phase, that we listen, it plants, it starts to grow, and when life comes, sometimes it squashes the little sprout. But we are trying our best to let some sunshine in, to let it grow. But the challenges of life sometimes make the plant a little a little rough there. But we're doing our best to keep it, to allowing it to grow. And obviously the final stage will be, there's nothing that is on the way of the growth of the sprouting, of the actual blossoming of the spirit, right? So when nothing is on the way, that's when we know we reach the point of close to perfection, what we were talking about. So that would be nice.
Yeah, when I was thinking exactly what it says, that most of us, just by being here in a meeting or listening and trying to understand, we probably more on that torn phase or area, let's put it that way, because we are trying, we are open open to listen and open to understand, to study, etc. So I think what we all need is lots of discipline as well and persistence. So as Emmanuel told Chico that if Chico Xavier needed discipline, discipline, discipline 3 times, we probably need how many times? I don't even know how many times we need, because sometimes most things in life, I would say, projects that we are keen to do is easy to start, isn't it? The start is really exciting. We have all the motivation to do because we feel that we can do it. We have the conditions and we have the time or whatever it is. But with life comes the challenge, the obstacles, and the things that we gotta face. And these are the thorns that start trying to put us down or try to stop us on our goal. So we do need to keep our motivation up, because the internal motivation, because the external motivation sometimes we have, like if we are watching a spiritist Lecture, yes, that's external motivation. A book can be external motivation as well. When we receive good news, yes, thank God, it's so good. I'm so grateful now. But then when we don't have the external motivations, when the problems come, we need to count on our internal motivation, which has to be all the time. We need to keep this internal motivation. And sometimes we're going to lose a little bit, but if we do have the persistence and if we have this faith in future, so that means we just keep going. Even if something goes wrong, we don't give up. We keep going and we try again. And we fail, something didn't go well, that's okay. Next day, we're going to keep going and doing our best. So it is challenging, and it is, but we are on the way. But we need to keep facing those difficulties and not losing the faith, not losing our internal motivation and our persistence as well. So yeah, it's a very, very cool, many things we can take from there, eh, Carol? Very interesting parable, as
Yeah,
usual the parables are.
yeah. So we just talked about it and said like, oh, that we would talk it through parables, and there comes one.
Yes.
I was gonna say, if you want to get the Spiritist book ready, Alcione, I can
Yeah.
talk while you're doing.
Okay. Thank
um,
you.
yeah. So it's a, this is a very interesting part of the chapter because it keeps and like all the chapters when we read through, they keep connecting what we talked about it before into it. So also this part talks about it. So what do we just talked about it, what does it take to be a true spiritist? So that you keep working on yourself, keep working on this bad inclination. So obviously that's how you just make sure you're preparing the soil for the seeds that you actually live in what you're studying. So pretty straightforward. So it's not being a spiritist doesn't mean being a person of moral like the part before. It just means the attempt to be a better person is happening, that you're not just stationary and going or studying or going for it says for the phenomenon, right? So for the status of it, or for because it sounds interesting, but you will want to listen to it but not apply to your actual life. We all need to apply to ourselves first before um, actually trying to apply to other people, right?
Cool. Thank you, Carol. Very good summary. So I'll try to put it here. Let's see if I can make a little bit bigger. So we are still on chapter 2 of the, no, sorry, chapter 7. I think is
7 year.
something to, yeah, the book 2, sorry. Yeah, it's chapter 7, but it's book 2. Sorry, I got a little bit confused with the two, which is we're going to move now to the Spirit's book, the return to corporeal life. And so we went through a few topics, but now we are in childhood. That's the topic that we are at the moment. Let's go. And with the Spirit's book, we read a question and a few questions and answers, and then we'll stop for some comments. So I will read the
Yes.
first one, Karen, to give you a little break.
Yeah.
Why are a child's first expressions those of crying? To incite the mother's interest and ensure the care it needs. Don't you understand that if it only expressed joy while still unable to speak, few would be concerned about its needs? Therefore, you ought to admire the wisdom of providence in everything.
What is the reason for the change that occurs in its character at a certain age, particularly upon leaving adolescence? Is it the spirit that changes? It is because the spirit recaptures its true nature and reveals who it really was prior to its present incarnation. You do not know the secrets that children conceal behind their innocence. You do not know what they are, what they have been, or what they will be. Nevertheless, you love and cherish them as though they were a part of you. This happens to such a degree that the love of a mother for her child is reputed to be the greatest love that one being may have for another. Why do even strangers feel sweet affection and display tender benevolence towards a child? Do you know? No? Well, I'll explain it to you. Children are beings whom God has sent into a new existence, so that God is not accused of excessive severity. God gives them all the appearances of innocence, even in children of an evil nature. Their misdeeds are covered up because they are unaware of the quality of their acts. However, this innocence does not truly reflect their state of advancement in relation to what they previously were. In reality, it is a picture of what they ought to be, and if they are not, the blame falls on them alone. Nevertheless, it is not merely for the children's sake that God gives them such an appearance. It is also and especially for the parents, whose love is necessarily in their fragility. Such love would be extraordinarily weakened if the parents were faced with a quarrelsome and bad tempered character. On the other hand, supposing their child to be good and gentle, parents give them all their affection and surround them with the tenderest care. However, when children no longer need the protection and assistance that has been given to them for 15 or 20 years, their true and individual character emerges in all its nakedness. Their character remains good if it was fundamentally good in the first place, but it will always display nuances that were hidden during early childhood. You can see that God's ways are always the best, and that when one has a pure heart, they are easily explained. In fact, ponder the possibility that the spirit of the child who is born among you may have come from a world on which he had acquired altogether different habits. How would you want this new being to remain in your midst with passions so diverse from yours, inclinations and tastes entirely opposite to yours? How would you want it to incorporate itself into your environment, except in the way God wanted to, that is, after having experienced the sieve of childhood? In this phase are mixed all the thoughts, all the characteristics, and all the varieties of being generated by the multitude of words on which individuals develop. Upon dying, you you yourselves will also be in a sort of childhood in the midst of new family members. In your new non terrestrial existence, you will be ignorant of the habits, the customs, and the forms of relationships of that world. And you,
Do you want me to continue here? It's very big.
I'll just read the sentence and then you go.
Okay. Yeah.
You will have difficulty in managing a language you are not used to speaking, a language more alive than your thought is today.
Maybe we just stop for a few comments because it's very, very
That was
long.
long.
One, hold on, let me just check. Okay, it was just a little bit more, but that's okay.
Do you want to read a bit more?
Yeah, I think we just, sorry guys.
And then, yeah, we read a bit more and then we comment and probably finish it. Just, yeah.
Yeah, let me just put bigger. So childhood provides yet another purpose. Spirits only enter corporeal life in order to improve and purify themselves. The fragility of the early years renders them flexible and accessible to the counsels of experience and to those who should aid their progress. That is the time when one can best reform their character and curb their evil tendencies. Such is the duty that God entrusts to parents, a sacred mission for which they will have to answer. Consequently, childhood is not only useful, necessary, and indispensable, but it is also the natural result of the laws that God has established and which govern the universe. I can't even remember what the question was
It is
specifically.
pretty long. Yeah.
What's the reason for the change that occurs in the characters at a certain age? Okay, cool. So yeah, very interesting questions and answers, but I think it does show God's wisdom and how this is done, right? Because our spirit in the childhoods, the spirit doesn't manifest yet the all the characteristics, all the tendencies, and we all love like kids. It's so easy to love the kids, right? We talk with them with a nice voice. Oh, come on, most of the little baby and you say, "Hey, come here! You're so cute." We talk like
Yes.
kids when we're talking with kids, and it's so easy. It's much easier to love a child that has this appearance of so innocent and naive and pure. But Spiritism explains to us that could be a very old soul and could be a soul with lots of imperfections, lots of, well, similar to us, lots to learn still. But we perceive them as little angels, isn't it? And then, of course, with time and with age, then the spirit will start showing the real personality or the real traits. And but it's very important that phase when parents can actually imprint lots of teachings and they can give lessons and examples, especially, right? And even as Carol said, we have the work on Sundays where we teach the kids about spiritism, about eternal life, and about moral and other things. So that's a very important time to put some seeds, some good seeds, as we read just now, so the seed can flourish. Yeah, but it's just, I suppose, it's just explaining why we perceive kids as angels or innocent. But in reality, yeah, they are spirits like we were kids as well one day, and the characteristics will come with time, the real ones. And it's a great opportunity for parents or whoever is looking after to imprint good examples so they can do better in this life, because we all came here to learn, whether independent of our age. Is there anything else, Carol?
Oh, I think this was really long, but it's also such an interesting topic. And if we compare, if we try and look from the science point of view, right? So if we look from like a behaviorist point of view, from psychology, is that obviously when we are growing up, we observe everything that is around us, and that helps us form our personality. So when
Mhm.
you're a child, you observe things much easier. And when you reach teenage years is when you start also getting to actually form your personality, your opinions, and the way you're going to behave as an adult. It's depends on so much on the teenage years, and that matches so much what we are reading now from also the spiritual point of view, is that when the child reincarnates, it takes the child quite a few years to actually be fully connected on this plane, on the earth plane. So between 5 and 7 years old is when the spirit is actually fully um, in earth, on earth, not so much connected to the spiritual plane, but actually fully connected to earth. And it starts then later on the in child. Now we say that teenage years start from the 11th or
Yeah.
11 or 12 years old. So by that age is when you notice that the child's behavior changes quite a bit when they start turning into teenagers. And it's such a difficult phase of life because there's so much transformation going on in your body, and that also goes on the spirit. It's so much influence around, and you're still figuring out who you are. And also because who you are, so the spirit, the essence of the spirit is also coming through. Until that age, you depend on your parents for everything. Your parents are going to do everything for you, make the decisions. That is the age that you start making the decisions, that you start actually seeing the personality of that spirit, that you start actually seeing who that spirit really is. So if we compare psychology to what we study here, that's all proven. That's all true.
Yeah.
That all happens. And we can even go a little deeper than psychology and see that there's a spiritual reason for that change in behavior on the teenage years, right? So we could also discuss like many things going from this, which is what is the difference between what you have that is already the influences and the behaviors that are already on you, and what you acquires from the environment around you, right?
Yeah.
If you can actually transform a person and etc. So the discussion can be hours and hours long. There is heaps of lectures and topics on this on YouTube and things to read. If you're interested, it's only worth searching for. There's a lot of psychologists on spiritism that do this comparison, and it can be quite deep. It's very interesting. But I think what I wanted to point it out here is that it's all proven. There is a very good explanation. I'll just share a comment from Manina, which is supposed to be shared. There we go. Not long ago, we studied the chapter 14 on the Gospel according to the Spiritism. Honor your father and your mother. And many lessons of the mission of parenthood are explained there. So yeah, it's totally worth going back to chapter 14. You can even see the study from this chapter because it's here online. But yeah, it's the challenges of parenthood, right? Having to deal with the spirit that is on its own, that is its own person. And obviously it's much easier, like Alcione said, to love a baby because it doesn't have personality yet. It can't talk back to you you know. So it's the less personality you will have, the easier it will be to love. So easier for the parents to grow fond of it and really love it. By the time that we grow, doesn't matter what we say, the love is already there planted. Mostly, obviously, not everything is unforgivable, but we probably will always love that child or always be loved by our parents. Doesn't matter how much wrong we do. So
Yeah, and parenting is definitely a mission, as Mani just mentioned. And I feel that nowadays has an added challenge, as in the technology and all the distractions around. Because of course, it's much easier to let the kids play with technology or just look at YouTubes and stuff like that because it's interesting and they like it. And but find the time to actually be with them, to play with them, and to be present, yeah, it's a big challenge, not easy, but yeah, it's a challenge. Is much needed to look after, even if we're not parents. The kids around us, they do needs our support, and especially example. I think example is crucial because they do note what we're doing and how we do, and what how we talk. So it's very important to keep up with that. Sometimes when I am at my brother's place and my nephews, they are not allowed technology, but if I'm using my phone, they say, yeah, why can you use it? So
yeah.
it's not time for us, but you are using. Okay, I'll turn it off. So kind of trying to give the good example, but it's not easy, isn't it? Because we also have our own imperfections and lots to learn, etc. But yeah, while we are around among the kids, we need to pay attention in ourselves so we can help them to learn more, because at that time they are like sponge. Everything that they see, everything that they hear, they absorb really quickly. So it's our duty to help them as well. Yeah, very interesting topic. Cool. I think we reached the time pretty much, eh?
Yeah, and that
Was
was
lots
really
of,
nice. It was lots of long things, but it was a good discussion.
yeah, and the topics were kind of light as well, I feel, right? I mean, very important message, but not too complicated or too hard to understand. For me, anyway, because sometimes, yeah, there are topics very hard to understand in spiritism, But yeah, thank you very much, Carol. It was really nice to be here with
Thank
you.
you.
And thank you, everybody, also that came to see us or are going to see us tomorrow or at some point. Was there anything else, Carol?
No, thank you very much. It was really nice. And we are gonna now do our final vibration for a couple minutes. If you guys have your water, or if you want to put the water in now to get magnetized, that's the time. Let's call for the water. Um, and we are gonna do after that our final prayer and just say our goodbyes.
Cool. Thank you. I'll put a nice picture. Um, if I press the right button here somehow.
There we go.
Oh, awesome. All right. So after all these beautiful lessons, all the important teachings from Gospel according to Spiritism and Spirit's book, let's then unite our thoughts, our feelings of love and charity. Let's together then vibrate, starting with this beautiful planet that's our home, our school. Let's embrace the planet Earth, vibrating fluids of peace, of harmony. It spreads everywhere our kindness, our love. Go to those places where people are in need, suffering because of violence or sickness. Let's vibrate to those that have been or are affected by the current pandemic, whether they are in the hospitals or maybe even on the streets, on those countries where help sometimes doesn't arrive on time. Let's give them our hope, bring them the faith in future that the situation is temporary. This life is temporary and everything will get better. It always does. Let's also vibrate to the kids that might be in trouble, in difficult situations. They are the ones that are in the phase of learning, but sometimes the examples are not the best. Let's vibrate lots of love, lots of kindness. Let's also remember those that are in prisons. Let's take our consolation that maybe they can have this desire of getting better and they believe that we all have second chance, third chances, and many chances that we need because we all make mistakes. We all fail in different circumstances, different times in lives. But nobody's gonna be left behind. We can all receive help if we ask sincerely with our hearts and with faith. Let's then vibrate to those closer to us, people from our family, Doesn't matter the distance. If they are in another country, another city, let's take our love to them. Let's take our best feelings. Vibrate for our work colleagues, our friends. And we can use this opportunity to think about someone that we know is going through a hard situation at the moment. Doesn't matter what type of the situation, but we just wanna let them know that we wanna help, even from far away. Send to them the best fluids and hope that their situation improve as soon as possible according to God's wishes. And then the only feeling left in our hearts is gratitude. So we just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity to be here, to connect again with the Superior Spirit plan and with each other, because together we are stronger. Together we can motivate each other and learn and get better as well. That we can all finish our meeting with our hearts lighter than when we started. That our faith can be now a little bit stronger so we can keep going and doing our best. Always remembering Jesus and his examples whenever we are in doubt. That we can all go in peace and have a good night until we meet again. So we ask permission to God, Jesus, and our spiritual friends to finish another Allan Kardec meeting. Thank you. So be it.
So be it.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, Carol. And so, guys, on the 8th of November, you can go to that website that we told in the beginning, TV Mundo Maior. All the information is on Facebook. You can see our participation there. But most importantly, you can see the participation of all the 40 different countries where there is spiritism in Brazil and outside. Oh, Brazil is one of the countries, so Brazil and the 39 other countries, if I'm not mistaken. And we see you again on Wednesday next week for another study here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.